Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. Today we're going to talk about some of my current favorites, and a lot of these are smaller plants. I know before I've showed you guys like my bigger plants like my Fleur de Beauty or even my Wavy No ID. Just going to start with I want to say one of my all-time favorites right now. Definitely top like 3. It is my Antherium PTO Florum. This is the newest leaf on it, you guys, which is like just now hardening off. It's still like slightly soft, like slightly, but it's, for the most part, I think this is going to be how, you know, big it's gonna be. And I am so freaking proud of this leaf, you guys. Like, I think I might have taken some pictures of like when it first unfurled, and I was kind of getting like sad a little bit because I was like, oh, it might not be like as big as I thought. Like maybe I overestimated, maybe I just set my expectations too high. But this thing definitely met my expectations, and it's not that I was like gonna be, I was gonna be a little bit like down if it didn't, you know, get as big as I expected it to be, but either way I appreciated the new leaf. And recently I've honestly just like gotten a grasp of this plant. I first imported this plant last year, like a little bit over a year ago. If you're a first time importer, import a PTO Florum. It is one of the easiest plants to import or acclimate. And so when I got my import, I literally just plopped it in no drainage. I think I had like a really weird sphagnum mix at the time. It had leca, sphagnum moss, perlite, pumice. There we go. I was about to say pon, but I didn't even have pon at that time. That's what I first put it in, and I just could not, after a certain time, it just kind of slowly, like the roots were just not doing too great. And so I propagated it. This is actually the top cut of my like first plant. I really want to get it back to that bigger size. I feel like I'm finally starting to get there, you guys. Like I really do love this. And I just love like every single aspect of this plant. It's an Antherium, and oh my god, like even right now while I'm looking at this, I don't think I've completely processed that I have this in my collection. And I feel like for a long time, I feel like this is because of the fact that this plant, for like during the summer I took the top cut, and then the whole summer it was sort of rerooting in water, and then I ended up potting it in pon. And I believe that's when it gave me this leaf. This leaf was in pon, I think. And then after that, it was just not a really fast grower, like at all, really. And so I decided to switch it out to soil. And I do keep this pretty moist. It actually probably needs water today. I mean, it could last a day or two, but this thing has been drying out pretty frequently. I might even have to up pot this pretty soon. Maybe I'll do like plant drawers. I don't know, we'll see. Overall, this has just become one of my like most prized plants because I never like expected to enjoy this plant as much as I did. I originally, when I was doing that import order, I only wanted the El Choco, and I was like, oh, I might as well like add something else in if like, you know, whatever's piquing my interest. And so I just decided to throw this one in there. And now I truly love this plant so much. And oh my god, I'm still like baffled that this is even in my collection. Now let's move on to my second favorite. Nothing else is going to be in order besides maybe the top 3. I think those are definitely going to be like the top. Do you guys remember my Solanum Ulianum from Houseplant Care? I'll try and find some older pictures and pop them in if I do have them. I think I might have posted it on my Instagram as well, so maybe I'll throw that in. I got it as like a small, it wasn't small, but it wasn't like trailing yet. It was just kind of like a little stock of the Solanum Ulianum. I got it from Houseplant Care. Pretty inexpensive. Hopefully I found the picture and I popped it in already, so you guys sort of get a sense of like when this was taken and, you know, when I got this plant, how big it was. And I want to say, I think it might have been like July maybe, because I remember waiting for him to drop, you know, some Solanum, and I was like, I was hunting, I was waiting for him to drop it, and then he finally did, and I snagged one. And so you guys can kind of get a sense of how much time it's had to grow. This is now my Solanum Ulianum. Hopefully I have it in frame because I cannot see what you guys are seeing, which this is my arm. Okay, I'm touching the top. This is my arm. Do Do you guys see that? Like, that is crazy. And oh my god, I've been like, okay, hold on. Rewind. Okay, I got it as one cutting. I chopped that, propagated another piece, and then I plopped it back in here, and I have propagated this multiple times after that. This plant is just amazing, and I would honestly even go to say that this could be a beginner plant. But the only thing with this, like, I feel like me saying that, it comes with conditions. Like, you have to get it specifically from Rousseau. Not specifically from Rousseau, but I'd say, like, at least get it from someone who's growing it in ambient conditions, because I haven't ever experienced this as a terrarium plant. I don't know if I really will. I don't ever think I want to put this in a terrarium. Like, I don't want to contain this. I want this to be like out and trailing and long and beautiful. Like, look at this freaking monster. And I think, like, even looking back at my picture, because I haven't even seen that picture, and so I don't know what you guys are going to be seeing. I think it might have been like maybe this long. Like, I know it was one little vine. It was enough for me to chop it, obviously, but yeah, I truly recommend this plant to anyone and everyone if you are contemplating getting one. Even if it is for a terrarium, I honestly recommend getting it from Rousseau, just because of, like, you're gonna be able to grow it outside in ambient conditions and in, like, terrarium conditions. Overall, I freaking love this plant. I want to add with this for a long time. I had like a gap. I don't remember where it is. I think it might have been this gap right here. Oh yeah, you can literally see it. There's this little gap right here where there's no leaves, no nothing. Like, for a long time, I was like, oh, I don't know if I should chop it, because there's two vines in here. This is the shorter vine. Oh my god. Oh my god. This is the shorter vine, and this is the longer vine. So I was like, and when I was thinking about chopping it, it was probably like here. And I was like, I don't know if I want to chop it. Like, that's a pretty big cut. And, you know, there's all of this, like, there's a gap, but it's like, I don't really want to chop it. And so I didn't end up chopping it, and now it's currently filling itself back in. There's another, like, offshoot. So there's two vines growing off of this one larger vine, and I don't doubt that, like, there's another, you know, auxiliary bud being activated. Like, I can definitely see this one here. This right here is the main vine that's like shot off, but then there's also like a small, maybe I'll try and zoom in, there's a small little auxiliary bud here, and then there's also one being activated somewhat right here. Hopefully you guys are seeing what I'm seeing. And so this plant is so unbelievably easy, like unbelievably easy. Just do not let this dry out, or else you're gonna get some crispy bits, which I'm not gonna lie, I have let this dry out a couple times now. I've also repotted this, I want to say at least like twice now, just because I wasn't sure, you know, what I liked it in, and it was for sure outgrowing its little container, and so I potted it to this. I was gonna try it in no drainage, but I just don't know how I'd like it in no drainage, so I just decided to stick with, you know, drainage holes. This does have drainage holes, and I have shown the design aspect of this. I have it in a Vanda basket, which I love. Anything in a Vanda basket is just like, it's an oldie but a goodie. Any plant that you put in a Vanda basket will just look immaculate. And maybe I'll try and find some examples. Like, I know Benji plant has like a Vitarifolium. Maybe not the Vitarifolium. He has something in the in a Vanda basket. I don't remember what. Love this plant, an absolute gem. It's one of the original leaves that it came with. Is this? No, okay. This right here, and you guys can kind of get a sense for how big the leaves were, and I think there was even a bigger one, but it might have already like died off, you know. But you guys can kind of get a sense for how big those leaves were, and for a long time I was kind of like, why am I not getting those leaves? And also this is like Rousseau's original leaf. Like, this is a leaf that he grew. You guys can also see how round those like singular little like petals are, I guess, or leaves. They're not really petals, but you guys can see how round they are. And with mine, I just have, this is the closest I've gotten to it, to like getting that, which I don't know what it is with this plant, but it has a really weird tendency that when you cut it and it regrows the new shoot, it grows really, really weird. Like, it grows like this. And I guess not even when you cut it, because this hasn't been cut, and it's still growing. Like it just grows like backwards a little bit, and then it'll throw like 2 or 3 leaves like that, and then it'll start growing normally. So this, you guys can see this one right here was grown like really, really weird, and then this one right here is the closest that I've been able to get to those big round leaves, and this one I did grow myself. Yeah, ever since then I just haven't really been able to get those round leaves. Like compare this, hopefully this is actually showing up, because I feel like in the mirror behind you guys it's not showing up, but you guys can see how round and like pillowy these are compared to like some of mine down here. You guys can see how much like sharper and just like angular those leaves are. They're definitely not as round or pillowy, and I feel like I'm just now starting to get to that size. Like, oh my god. Here's a really good example of that. Like this one right here, it's sort of starting to show up a little bit more pillowy, which I'm really excited about. I don't know, I love this plant, and yeah, it's a good one. I would even come close to saying it's an all-time favorite because of how quickly this thing has grown for me. I'm not gonna promise anything because I don't know if I have pictures, honestly, but if I do, I will pop in what this plant looked like when I first got it. It was like a couple rhizomes that I got from a friend, and yeah, it was really small, and like I really liked it when I got it, but now getting to experience the growth, this plant in general, I really, really, really love it. I have no idea what this plant is. I will try my best to find it. Maybe I'll use like Google Lens or something to try and find the name of this, because I think that everyone needs to have this in their collection, especially if you are into dark and velvety. This is the one for you, especially under Barinas. I don't know what it is with Barinas in this plant. It is this Bonia Rex. I don't know, again, I don't know specifically the name, but I will do my best to find what this is called. And it is just so beautiful. When the leaves first come out, they come out like really, really dark, like this one right here. And this does have a blue shift. I've only been able to catch it like once or twice, I think. I recently tried to catch it again, but the camera just isn't, I don't know what it is. The camera just isn't really doing it for like this plant. It just does not want to catch it. And of course, you know, these rhodobaxules, you guys know me and rhodobaxules, they always freaking get me. When I first got this, I was actually kind of a little bit scared just because the leaves did look a little bit silvery, but getting to experience this, I have fallen in love with the silveriness. Even like this most recent leaf right here is so precious to me. Like I truly love this plant. Like it is one of my all-time favorites, and they're supposed to like fade off to like a lighter tinge of green. I was about to say yellow. A lighter tinge of green, and mine just have sort of stayed this darker, rich green, which some of them, like some of the newer ones definitely are. Like this is a newer leaf right here. They're definitely starting to, you know, shift to like a silvery, even over here, there's like a completely silver leaf, which I love how variable this is as well. It's not something that I would expect myself to like, but honestly, growing this, it's just another unexpected favorite. I love this plant. I really, really do. Hopefully I find the name, because I think that everyone needs to have a little slice of this. It is a really, really cool plant and really easy. I know a lot of people tend to be intimidated by begonias. Honestly, begonias are not that difficult. Treat them like any other plant. At least in my experience, I've definitely noticed that with this one. You let it dry out just like any other plant, and you know, water it whenever it's dry. I have recently been underwatering this, or not underwatering, bottom watering. It does fine. I don't really do that by choice. It's just because it's a little bit hard to like get down into the soil because of how like puffy this thing is. But yeah, really good plant. I love it so much. This is my Philodendron Eltrogo Red, or the Philodendron Rubri Juvenile. If you have, you know, been on this channel before, you know exactly what this plant means to me. Like, you know how much I've tried to root this up, how much I've struggled with this plant. I imported my first one. That one is no longer with us. It just slowly shriveled down and, you know, got smaller and smaller and smaller. Because I was just struggling with it. And then I bought a new one. That one did amazing for a good couple months, and then it got root rot, had to reroot it, and here we are. here we are. This one took a while for me to actually get it to be successful in like after propagating it. It was a struggle. I think I've rerooted this 3 times. Yeah. I've just noticed that sphagnum is the way to go with this. Like chopped up sphagnum, a lot of perlite, some bark. You know, you don't really want a lot of compactness in there either. And it has really, really taken to this mix. I think there's this root right here which grew in this, which grew in this system, like, you know, while it was in here, because I did leave some of the water roots peeking out, which one of them actually rotted, I think, and it kind of scared me, and I was like, oh, maybe I should, you know, repot this. I didn't. I left it, and it's been perfectly fine. I've just really, really tried my best to like observe this plant as much as I could, like really feeling the leaves, and like if it was like still rigid, like right now you guys can see it's pretty like bouncy and rigid, which tells me that it's taking up water somehow. So therefore, like, it goes on to show you that it still has roots in this. If it weren't for that, I probably would have repotted this. It probably would have, you know, gone into shock, even more shock, because El Chocos are like that. They are very, very temperamental if you repot them or mess with the roots in any sort of way. That is that. I don't really know what else to say. It's a really easy plant other than that. I've let this dry out like ridiculously. I've let this go ridiculously dry, and it bounces back every single time. Next is my Brazilian rain tree, which I think I've featured this on multiple occasions on my favorites, but recently I think it means a little bit more, just because this plant, I repotted it into something. I think it was this vessel or a smaller one, and I completely forgot about it. Didn't water it the next day, didn't water it the day after that. And, you know, I came back to it at the end of the week, and I was like, oh my god, this thing was like full of yellow leaves. They were all closed, really wrinkly, just not doing well. And I am finally happy to say that I think it's finally bouncing back. If I can get B-roll of like the leaves open and sprawled, it is just such a beautiful plant, you guys. Like, this plant, I cannot get over it. Like, I really am so happy that I purchased this plant, because I got this plant when I was working at the plant store, like my local plant store. I was contemplating not getting it, like, because it was kind of expensive. It was like $30, which you don't really come around these a lot, so it makes sense. But I was just like really contemplating not getting it, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get it, and I do not regret it. Like, if I didn't get this, I feel like I would have regretted it. I feel like, what is up with me? I feel like I would have regretted it if I didn't get it, and that rhymed, but anyways. And now I've fully gotten to experience the resilience of this plant, how fast it grows as well. It is just truly a really, really, really fun plant, and I love it. Oh my god, I love it so much. And it's even got its own little springtail farm in here, which I leave alone. I don't mind the springtails, specifically in this one, because of the fact that this thing just sheds like crazy. It's something that does tend to get annoying, because I will have just like cleaned my shelf, and then the next day I'll go and there's like 5 leaves just sitting there, you know? If you have the chance to get this plant, even if you're not into bonsai, because this is technically a bonsai tree, or it's, you know, a tree that people use for bonsai, even if you aren't into bonsai, get it, because I promise you, if you don't, you're going to regret it. Like, this is such a fun plant. It is just really, really cool, and it is semi-easy to propagate. I have propagated it before, but I think I talked about this in one of my other videos. It just didn't really do well after the fact, like after water propagating it and stuff and potting it up. They just don't really tend to do well. I do want to experiment with it a little bit more this summer, and like really get a sense for what it likes. And I think maybe if it's in the summer, it might do a little bit better. They were also pretty small cuts, because when I was researching like how to propagate this, they tell you to get like woody stems, and like if you get like the newer ones, like here you can see it's like green compared to like down here at the base how it's like, you know, pretty barky and woody. You want to take a propagation that's more on that side of the spectrum versus like, you know, freshly grown. But yeah, definitely want to experiment with that a little bit more to get a better sense of what this plant likes. And another begonia. This is actually a propagation, which I might even pot up today just because of how quickly these roots are coming in. But this is a Bonia Listada, which I did mention, maybe it was in my house tour. I recently got this one and I love it. I really do. This is another one that I'm like checking every morning. It's right next to my El Choco and right next to my Brazilian rain tree. So I am just like constantly looking at this. And I think what really gets me is the newer leaves that were grown in my care. I don't know if there's here. Let me take it out. Maybe that's the best way to do this. This is what the new leaves that are coming in look like. And I just really like how like purpley and red they are. Like, do you guys see how like, hopefully the camera is catching what I'm talking about, because I feel like there's just like this undertone of like red, but then there's also like a shift of purple. Not a shift, but there's just like a deep fuchsia tone. There we go, like a deep fuchsia tone in this leaf, and like combined with those little speckles and like the red little, you know, what is that called? Like the sinus, I guess. There's a word for it, but it's left me right now. And I just love it so much. Oh my god, I really, really do. Oh, and I do want to pot this up pretty soon because I know how vigorous these are and I know how big these can get. And with this plant specifically, I envision like a big begonia tree. I have a specific picture in mind right now that I'll insert. And that is what I want for this plant. That is truly what I want for this plant, because like begonias just grow, especially cane begonias, they grow really, really cool. And I feel like just feeding off of the way, like the structural element of begonias, I feel like it could just be like the coolest looking display ever. Especially if I can get this, you know, sized up pretty well, I would be so, so happy. And even right now, I freaking love this plant and its little flowers. It's so cute. Lastly, this is another propagation, and I hope that this still counts because I feel like this is still a favorite of mine, but for a different reason. So, plant that I'm talking about is my, I was about to say El Choco. It is my, what are you called? My Filodendron Gigas. I was about to say El Gigas. Oh my god. Okay, my Filodendron Gigas. I know it's not necessarily a plant and it's sort of in rehab mode right now, but the reason why I want to feature this is because of how, like, I guess just like appreciating it a little bit more, because I feel like for a long time, even like when it was potted up and like on a pole and everything, I was kind of really intimidated by this plant in the sense of like propagating it, and like at some point I'm gonna need to propagate this. It also didn't have great roots, like they weren't roots that I would keep if I had a choice to, but because of, you know, me being sort of on the fence with propagating it and just not being well experienced in propagating Gigas in specific, I just sort of left it to be. I didn't want to mess with it. I didn't want to, you know, fiddle with it. I just sort of left it. And recently I was sort of forced into propagation because of my, you know, repotting that went south. And at first I tried to keep it out in my ambient conditions to like reroot it. It started to reroot, but it wasn't like anything crazy. It wasn't like really doing that well, and it was losing more roots than it was actually gaining. And then more recently I stuck it in a cloche, which is, you know, this little contraption here that just sort of tends to hold in humidity, and it is actually doing super, super, super well. And so this is technically the top cut, and then this is a bottom cut, and then I think there's another cutting in here. Oh yeah, it's right here. This is the bottom cut right here, and it's just now starting to push out a growth point, which just makes me really, really happy. And I'm happy that I get to experience this because now I feel more like an expertise with like rerooting this plant, getting it to size up for me, because it did give me a pretty big leaf before it, you know, sort of went downhill. Like this is the biggest leaf it's ever given me, and so I just feel really happy to like have this in my collection. And yeah that's all I gotta say. All right, those are all my favorites, and I do want to talk about some plants that I'm struggling with because there's quite a few. And with the good, like, even though I'm showing you the good, I also want to be more realistic, and hopefully you guys don't think that like, oh my god, like she just has such a good collection, like everything is growing amazing, because that is really not the case whatsoever. I have plenty of plants that I am constantly struggling with. One of them is my white wizard, which is in that, you know, pot with the gigas. My wavy no ID, which I wouldn't say I'm struggling with it, but it's just kind of at a standpoint, and I don't know what is up with it. Like, it's been unfurling a leaf forever, and like the leaf is open, it just hasn't really expanded, and I'm just kind of like, are you doing anything? Like, I don't know. Yeah. My maidenhair fern as well, you guys. I've actually been thinking about throwing that one away because of how discouraged I am right now of that plant. That plant was always one of my favorites. Like, it was always just amazing, resilient. Not to say that it isn't now, but it's definitely not doing its best, I guess we'll say. But with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know any of your guys' favorites or what you've been struggling with, because you guys, I've been struggling with a lot. Even right now, my calathea behind you guys needs some water, and I can tell. So yeah, with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I truly, truly hope you enjoyed.